Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today it is Tuesday, the 12th of October 2021. My name is Rita Q, and you're very welcome to the Recovery from Relapse meeting of Overeaters Anonymous. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to have Roz P join us from New York City. Roz has been in OA for over 40 years, and I am now going to hand it over to her to share her experience, strength, and hope. Take it away, Roz.
Okay. Rita, you always make me smile and laugh. Guys, it's really my pleasure to be here and to speak about relapse. I've been in OA for like over 40 years, and you would think, I wish I was one of those people that came in and just got it immediately. I knew from when I was very young that I was a little different. I think the obsession with food started when I was like in elementary school. And I really wanted to be like everybody else. And I went to a very small grade school, and there were like maybe 16 people in my class, and I didn't get invited to somebody's slumber party, my friend Judy's slumber party. And at that point, I decided I didn't want to be smart anymore. I didn't want to be a nerd, who I really was. I wanted to be popular. So when I went to high school, I don't know what you guys call it in England, but when I went to high school, I decided to twist myself into a pretzel. And when I started separating from who I really was, that's when the binging started. Okay. So my history with food was high school. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be like everybody else. I remember hiding in a closet. Fast forward, I went to college, binged my way through, barely graduated from college, got out, moved to New York, and I couldn't. It's funny how I don't know how everybody else gets into program. I really didn't get into program for serenity or whatever. I got into program because I couldn't write. I was doing papers and I was writing articles for a small town newspaper. I couldn't write and eat at the same time because I was writing and going to the fridge and writing and going to the fridge. So a friend said to me, "What about OA?" So I went to 3 different meetings. This is when we were meeting in person. And I said, "What a bunch of kooks." And in a creepy little church basement. So I went to 3 different meetings. And on the 3rd meeting, somebody said something: "If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got." Bada bing, bada boom, I said, aha. So I started going to OA on a regular basis, and I did get abstinent. Now I'm going to talk about, during my 40 years, there were 4 significant relapses. And I'm going to talk about those relapses. I'm no stranger to relapse. When I first got abstinent, it was like pink clouding. I don't know if anybody else has been there. It was new. I was meeting different people. It seemed easy. It seemed so easy that I got complacent. So I relapsed. But I quickly got up from that relapse. And again, it was still new. I was still, meeting new people, got a sponsor. I was working the steps, but I relapsed again. And that time it was easy to get up. I really, Rita, appreciate the way you started the meeting with, we're praying for the people who are still have this disease, who aren't here with us, or who are still dealing with this, because we have to deal with food every day. I have to deal with food. I'm only 1 meal away from a binge. I'm only one. I can't take it for granted, is what I'm saying. And in those first 2 relapses, I didn't know that. I didn't know it. I took it for granted. The 3rd relapse, I must have been in program about 10 or 12 years. And I had a very young cousin who moved to New York, and her boyfriend killed himself in front of us. I was devastated. I had mainline sugar. The pain was so intense. I couldn't deal with it. I just was mainlining sugar. So what I did was, I remember I did this for months because I saw this, and it was just horrible. So what I did was, I was in a phone booth and I called somebody in program. I called a fellow. Now this is a shout out for people who are thinking of sponsoring. I called this woman that I knew from program. I said, "Cecilia, I'm binging like crazy. My life is totally unmanageable." She said, "Look, I could sponsor you if you do something." Again, sponsors. She said, "All you have to do is stop eating refined sugar." Okay, that was simple. And she said, "Take your binges and make 3 small meals." Well, that helped me get out of that relapse. You know how they have those slogans, keep it simple? I hated those slogans. But you know what? For a complicated person like me, keeping it simple was so good. I did it. I gave up refined sugar. Now, I didn't give you my history. My history of food is I'm definitely a compulsive overeater. I can't have one cookie. I can sit down and eat 7 dozen. Okay. I can cook a meal for 4 people, eat the meal, and I have to order out. That's where I come from. I wish I was one of those people who said, oh, I undereat, or oh, food doesn't call to me. Oh, I'm not one of those people. How I learned to cope was eating, you know? And one of the things this program has taught me over the years, whether I was in relapse or not, was how to cope. Okay. I crawled out of that relapse. I had 4 years of abstinence. And, when we get abstinent, life gets big. I don't know. It just got bigger. I had my vision, I had my wish list. I prayed for the guy. I was in my 40s, but I got the guy. So now we're going to these great restaurants. Life is getting bigger. And I'm like, well, we're going to great restaurants. It's okay. Then he moves in with me. Now I'm entertaining his family. So I'm having these buffets. I'm buying bagels and lox. And the weight is beginning to creep up. It's beginning to creep up. And I rented a house on the Jersey Shore one summer. Now, this is important to note. I only had 2 guests coming. I had a 6-year-old and her mom. So the rationale with this disease said to me, that little girl needs a chocolate cake. You really should get a chocolate cake for that little girl. Now, we all know that little girls do not eat a big chocolate cake. I hope we're allowed to talk about food. Well, they ate smidges. They left. I cleaned up. I was hungry. I was tired. I was angry because my partner wasn't helping me clean up. It was midnight. I got that chocolate cake and I ate them with my bare hands and I left a smidge. I don't know why I always leave like a smidge. I ate that chocolate cake. And that was the beginning of my 4th relapse. That relapse took me 6 years to get out of. I crawled out of that one. Okay. That started, but the obsession started. That little girl needs a chocolate cake. Click, 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 click. Okay. Then my partner got sick. And the rationale went, you're caregiving, you're a carer. I guess you call it in the UK, you're a carer. You don't really need to really watch your food too much. I put program behind everything else. I'm saying these things so that we'll turn it around and we'll see how I crawled out of that relapse and what I try to do today. Well, he got sicker and I was saying that the dryer shrunk my clothes. I washed my clothes, they shrunk. I didn't think that I was gaining weight. I only looked at the mirrors from here up and the weight was creeping up and up and up. Well, I never stopped going to meetings and I never stopped praying to be abstinent. And I have to tell people who are still suffering, there is recovery and relapse. Now, I wouldn't wish a relapse on my worst enemy. Let me just repeat that. I would not wish a relapse on my worst enemy. My house reflected the relapse. When I'm eating sugar, my body physically gets warm. I get angry. I don't know what refined sugar does to me. Now, there are other things people can eat, but I decided coming out of that relapse to get serious because it took me, as I said, a very long time. I ain't taking this thing for granted anymore. So luckily I got somebody to sponsor me. My partner had died. He had been gone for about a year. And she gave me a lot of time. I mean, she had me work with her every single day. Okay. And I'm going to say this again for sponsorship. Some people in program I felt deemed me when I was relapsing contagious. Okay. I learned after 35 years in this program that I have a disease. So let me repeat that. This is a disease. I didn't ask for it. I just have an irregular relationship with food. That's it. Doesn't make me a bad person. But I do have a disease when it comes to food. Ergo, I need to take my medicine on a daily basis. I need meetings. I can't do it by myself. Now, my mother, I think when she delivered me, my mother was 5 feet. I think she weighed like 120 pounds when she had me. And I was a big baby. Her thing was, and she was a baker. She was the one who baked all the cookies that I binged on. Dearie, all you need is a little willpower. Now, she had a son who was a drug addict. She had a husband who was a rageaholic. And she had a daughter who was a food addict. And she had baked goods all over the house. It was like a minefield. All you need is a little willpower. And then she would bake meals for 4, and I would eat them and we would have these blowouts. Dinner time was always a mess in my house. However, I don't have the willpower with food. Now, fast forwarding to today. As I said, I really got an appreciation of abstinence after the 6 years. One thing that this last relapse taught me was I only am guaranteed sobriety or abstinence on a daily basis. I really can't take this for granted. Now, civilians I've noticed have tried to give me, I don't know about anybody else, they really do try to have me taste whatever they bake, or if we go to a restaurant. I've had a nephew try to spoon feed me with some French dessert. So I finally started to say, you know what, I can't have that. Now, some of my brother's friends think that I'm really stoic. So finally I tell them, I said, you know what, if I have one, I can't have more. Or, you know what, I'm allergic to sugar, end. It took me a very long time working with that sponsor after my 4th relapse to get the courage to tell people I can't. Oh, but I baked it. Well, that's lovely. I'm glad you're a baker. I can't have it. But that took me a lot of courage. Now, the little girl with the chocolate cake, when I entertain these days, the takeaway from that was I don't bring that stuff into my house. Not only do I not bring baked goods into my house, I don't bring cheese in, because cheese is another one of my can't have it in the house things. Okay. It's like it calls to me. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't come if if I order in, it's on the top of something, but I used to get like blocks of cheese and whatever. I don't do that anymore. My thing is, when I entertain, if you take it, you bring it back with you. I don't want it. And I've gotten very, people can say what they want. Remember now, I always wanted to be liked by everybody. That's what started this craziness. I really don't care today if people don't like my attitude with food. You want it, you bring it for yourself and you take it home, because I can't deal with it. And I don't want it because I remember that chocolate cake. My mind does contortions, and I try not even to bring gifts to people of food. If it's not good for me, there's alternatives, there's flowers, you know? I don't go through all the machinations. Now, I haven't touched on the spiritual part. I think a lot of us in program feel, HP's got so much on their plate. I mean, really, he can't deal with my food. I'm in relapse. What good is it to him? He's got the whole world to take care of. Not. I did, during that last relapse, I did pray to get abstinent. I did go to meetings. And a shout out to everybody is keep coming to meetings. Who cares what people think? Who cares, if you get there late? Just try to get into a meeting. And now with all these Zoom meetings, we have no excuse. We literally have no excuse to get to these meetings. I never stop coming. And I have to tell you guys, I've met the most incredible people. My best friends are from this program. Most of the gifts in my life, when I came into program, I wasn't working. Okay, I worked the steps. So despite the fact of those 4 relapses, I really kept doing, to the best of my ability, the work. But that last relapse, the thing that prevented me from coming in sooner, I could have maybe cut the 6 years by a year or two. It was like, well, I've been in program so long. I mean, how can I face people? And I know this particularly for people who are leaders. Sometimes we in OA make our leaders they've lost all this weight and blah, 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 and they seem to have it together. Unfortunately, that's not good, because we tend to make idols out of these people. We're all bozos on the bus. Whether we have a day of abstinence, whether we're here with no abstinence, we're all bozos on the bus. And I love the fact that I'm with all of you from across the pond. Whether we're across the pond or in the city, we all have this disease. I can keep a complete bar with whiskey, and I never think of it. If I buy $100 worth of food, I know exactly where every bit of food is. And believe me, the obsession goes da-ding, da-ding, da-ding. I have an irregular relationship with food, and it's taken me a long time to accept that. Acceptance also. Okay, so fast forward to today. I have been, as I said, my arrogance. So working the steps of this program, I had to swallow. It took me a lot of humility to come back and say I'm in relapse. Now, the interesting thing is people saw, I was getting bigger and bigger. How I thought that people didn't notice that I was in relapse. But I had to admit it. That's the first thing. I came in, I worked, and I said, I'm really in relapse. I need help. You know, there's no shame, no matter if you're in a year, a day, a week. This is a we program, guys, you know. And I noticed coming out of this relapse, I can't take it for granted. This is a person who gets complacent. My mother always said it, when things go well, that's when my destruct button comes on. I can't take this for granted because that's when I get sloppy. Now, that doesn't mean that I have a really perfect abstinence. You know, I wonder sometimes too if people say that they're in relapse. You know, if you have like 3 extra peas or 3 extra leaves of lettuce, I think you need to talk to your sponsor. Is that a relapse? You know, I just with myself. To me, abstinence is balance in my life. It's a balance with food, it's a balance with my activities, it's a balance with my emotional stability. This is a physical, mental, and emotional disease. It's spiritual. How's my relationship with my higher power? When I put things behind program, I'm in trouble. Okay. And when I forget that I need other people, like when I put everything behind my program, that's when the last relapse really flourished. So I need to say that, you know what, we're all bozos on the bus. We all have this disease, but we need to help each other. And I felt early on in the program, and I'm going to say this again, people kind of treated me, some people treated me kind of like I was contagious. But there were those fellows who accepted me no matter where I'm at. And that's what I'd like to say to people today. No matter where people are at, we need to accept them because they remind me, and I remind myself that I'm a bite away. And I think for sponsors, I heard this at a meeting the other day, it's tricky. I had one sponsor, I think she was in my Relapse 3. She was one of the premier sponsors in program. I was binging my brains out and telling her that I was binging. I said, Harriet, I'm in relapse. Oh, honey, guess what? I had to fire her. I was in relapse. She was too valuable of a sponsor. For sponsors and sponsee, I think we need to be honest with where we are. I crawled out of those relapses only when I was able to get honest and open and willing. And then I had a nun that I was sponsoring, a religious person. She wanted me to continue sponsoring her. I really believe as a sponsor, I need to have my program a clean program. Okay. So all of these things come into play with relapse. I needed as a sponsee to tell my sponsor, she didn't want to let me go. You know, she was enabling me. I had to fire her because it wasn't helping. It wasn't her helping her and it wasn't helping me. Eventually in her 80s, she went off to Al-Anon, you know. With a nun, I had to tell her, I had to say, listen, sister, you've got to get somebody else because I'm not clean with food. And I'm not in the right particular frame of mind to do this. So I just want to say also to piggyback what Risa said also, service is really important. Whether you're in relapse or not, you could set up a chair, you could read the traditions at the beginning of the meeting. Service is important. All of this stuff, it's putting one foot in front of the other. And I'll tell you something, the hallmark of all my binges was, I don't know about anybody else, when I was binging, I would throw caution to the wind. Well, I binged today, who cares? I'm just going to continue. If you're eating right now, well, you're not eating at this meeting. But if you're relapsing right now, you can stop right now. That was another thing. I didn't believe it. You can stop eating right now. And when I went to meetings, it was wonderful because I wasn't eating the food. At least in this hour and a half, none of us are stuffing our face. Is that time? Roy, how much time do I have left?
No, you've gone 18. Go ahead, take your time.
All right, because I'm going to wrap it up, Roy, in probably about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so I might just get to the 20 if that's all right with everybody. I hope this has been helpful for other people, but I think the thing is that we have to realize that, you know, wherever we are, we all have this common bond, and it's something. And I didn't tell you that I have like 13 years of abstinence, which has been a gift. It's been a total gift. And the spiritual side of the program, for those of you who aren't spiritual, whatever your higher power is, I prayed to a higher power that I would crawl out of the last relapse. I prayed because I couldn't do it by myself, you know, and never stop coming back to meetings. And I think for all of us right now, like right now for today, I'm not in relapse. I need to reach out. I need to reach out to other people who have the same problem. You know, give them my phone number, maybe take them to a meeting. Although we're on Zoom, tell them about Zoom meetings. Guys, I'm going to come back. I really do I love the fabric. I like the feel of this meeting. You're all very warm. So I just think that it's so important to have these relapse and recovery meetings to keep it fresh for us, and for you all to hear that I've had 13 years. It's not perfect. And I'm not saying it's perfect. I wish it was, and I didn't come in and I didn't get abstinent right away. So if that gives people hope, I hope so. So I'm going to end here. I hope it's okay for everybody, but I'd like to hear from all of you. And just for today, just realize that it's a day-to-day thing. And all those slogans that we said, just for today or keep it simple, that keep it simple slogan saved my butt because I'm complicated. So whenever I think of getting things really complicated, I think of that slogan. And if I'm really worried with something, I let go and let God. When I'm relapsing, I'm too foggy. I can't do anything. I just can't do anything. So I prayed though, when I was in that last relapse, I prayed, please God, because my life, well, it was the same life. I didn't have that fogginess. Everybody comes into program and says, oh, I'm a new person. I don't believe that. And I tell my sponsees, because I work with 2 sponsees, I'm not a new person, but I'm striving to be the best person that I can be. And that's what I'd like to leave you with. And when I'm abstinent on a daily basis, and I don't take it for granted, and I'm humble, I have a chance to be the best that I can be, the best that my higher power wants. So with that, I'm going to leave you. Rita, my dear, thank you so much for this opportunity. Hugs to everybody. Have a great abstinent evening. Bye, everybody. Toodles.
Roz, thank you so much. And you really are the best version of who you can be.